Hey everybody, so today I'm going to do a quick video on the best ways to use Farore's Wind in Ocarina of Time Randomizer. So Farore's Wind is, in my opinion, a really powerful item, especially if you find it early, especially if paired with magic early. It has the ability to save you 2 or 3 minutes over the course of the seed if you use it really well, sometimes more, depending on your dungeon and key layouts. So for anybody who is unfamiliar with Farore's Wind or is new to Ocarina of Time, a quick rundown of how it works. So when you set Farore's Wind, you set it at the entrance of the room that you last used. So in this case, I just came through this door. When I set Farore's Wind, it will appear right above the door, and when I return to Farore's Wind, it'll return me right to that door. So this can be useful, for instance, if you happen to fall off this maze, it will bring you right back to where you started. This has a couple of not so obvious applications. This room is a pretty good example. It's really hard to run across that bridge. People fall all the way down here. You may think that you're now in a different room, but the last door that you came through is up above you. So if you use Farore's Wind after you fall down here, and then warp back, you're able to instantly go back to the door that you just came through. So it allows you to recover from mistakes like that pretty quickly. One thing that's new to Farore's Wind in Randomizer that wasn't true in Vanilla is that you're actually able to set 2 different Farore's Wind warp points. One is adult and one is child. In Vanilla, every time you travel through time, the Farore's Wind warp point is dispelled, but in Randomizer, it stays right where it is even if you go back and forth through time. So I'm going to go through the dungeons where Farore's Wind can help save time. That's actually all of the dungeons in the game except for Deku Tree, Dodongo's Cavern, and Ice Cavern, where there's really no situation in which using FW is going to save any time. So we'll start with Jabu-Jabu. Alright, so we're here in Jabu, and there's 2 ways that you can use FW and Jabu to save time. If you're coming in here with the boomerang and you're intending to beat the dungeon, FW is actually not useful for you. You're not going to save any time with it. Whether you're go-moding or full clearing, there's really nowhere you can put it. But if you are coming in here without the boomerang, there's 2 different things that you can do to save time. So whether it is a medallion, but you don't have the boomerang yet to beat it, or it's a stone and you're just dipping up to the boomerang chest, you have basically 2 options. One is to come in here and just drop FW right at the entrance. I favor that play if it's a stone and you're not sure if it's all dungeons yet. You have Ruto's Letter, you're checking out Zora's Domain, you come up here, you leave Farore's Wind, and then it's quick and easy to get back. Otherwise, it can take a couple of minutes to walk back here or swim back here, so that can be a good way to save a little bit of time. If you do want to check out the boomerang chest, though, there is a way to set FW that saves you quite a bit of time, so I'm going to show you how that works. So you've got Ruto, you're in the room with the boomerang chest, and at this point, what a lot of people will do is they'll just drop FW in here and save warp out or warp out. That actually loses you a fair amount of time. So you don't have the boomerang, you're not able to make any further progress, but the best use of FW here is actually to go to the next room. Wood and Vanilla is the map room, the room with the first slimy thing that you need the boomerang to defeat. Come on, Ruto. We're going to leave Ruto on the switch outside of this room. Come in here, set FW, and now we can leave. If we leave Ruto in the boomerang room, and we leave FW in there, when we warp back, she'll be gone. She'll be gone back to the main room with all the electric jellyfish. You've got to go all the way back out there to get her, and then all the way back down the hall to come to this room. But when we leave Jabu now, when we warp back and defeat the tentacle, Ruto will be waiting right outside the room for us. So this probably saves about 30 or 40 seconds while we're leaving FW in the boomerang room, and it's free time save. You've got to walk down that hallway anyway when you come back to beat the dungeon, so you may as well do that. And there she is waiting for us. Okay, so in bottom of the well, there's not really a lot that you can do with FW to save time. It's a pretty short dungeon. It only takes about 6 or 8 minutes to full clear it. And also there's not a lot of doors that you go through, and so there's not a lot of opportunities to set FW. One very contextual situation in which it can be useful is if you find a hint that Dead Hand is not a required item, but obviously you still want to check the invisible chest in that room. So in that case, what I'll do often is I'll set FW coming out of that room with the coffins and the Gibdo, and this allows you to quickly skip out of the Dead Hand room without fighting the boss or save warping. I think that this would save a good amount of time if you're playing on Wii VC, because the save reload time is quite a bit longer, but I do still think this is worthwhile if you're playing on emulator versus saving and quitting, because it puts you right back into the middle of the dungeon rather than you having to go through the entrance again. So I get the chest, and hey, I'm right back in the thick of things, ready to start opening more chests and doing more checks. There's only one location in Forest where FW is useful, but it has the potential to save quite a lot of time. It's right here in the Twisted Hallway, which is a pretty unique room in the game, and interacts pretty interestingly with Farore's Wind. So when we set it in the Twisted Hallway, it preserves the state of this room as twisted, even if we straighten it. So if I come out here, straighten the room, the Farore's Wind point is still set in the twisted version of the hallway, not in the straightened hallway. So when I warp back, the hallway will be twisted again. And this interacts really well with a situation in which you find 2 keys in the first 2 checks. If you're able to do that, then you can get up here and do all of the checks in the lobby, and then warp right back to the Twisted Hallway and go on to fight the pose. So this is by far the fastest way to clear out all of these checks. It still is a time saver if you're only dropping down to do the boss key chest, although it's barely a time saver because of the equipping, or if you're dropping down to do the boss key chest and the floor master chest. But it saves quite a bit of time if you're going to come through and do both of the courtyards. So once you get down here, we can warp back. We don't need to climb out of the well. We don't need to re-climb through the push block room. We can just return to the warp point. The hallway is twisted again, and we can continue on to fight the pose. I think that saves a little over a minute compared to not having FW in the same situation, which is a significant amount of time. It adds up. In Fire Temple, there's 2 things that you can do with FW that each save about, I would say, 15 seconds. Maybe 20, and again, that's free time save just from having FW and remembering to use it. So one is here when you get to this chest and unlock this gate for the shortcut. It is a long walk back over here, and it is a long and slow climb up these chains. If you have FW, by far the fastest thing to do is to pause, equip it, set it. Remember, you've entered this room from the door at the top of the maze. So that's where it sets your warp point to, even though you're now down here in a different room. And then we can immediately return to that warp point. That saves us the walk and climb. Probably right after that, you're going to want to do the Scarecrow check up top. There are a few good setups for quickly getting down from that room, but the fastest way to get down is definitely using FW again. And to save even a little bit more time, you can start to equip it while the elevator is rising. The first half of Link's animation, the elevator will continue to rise. It saves like a second, but again, free time save. So as soon as you're done doing the Scarecrow check up here, rather than falling down onto the narrow bridge, you can just warp right back down here. Presumably you're carrying on with the dungeon at this point, and you're ready to continue forward. Water Temple is pretty straightforward. There's basically 3 options. One is that you're coming in here to look for items. If you're coming in here to look for items and you don't care about beating the temple, I would leave FW right here at the entrance. It acts as a sort of faster save warp. This is especially a time save if you're playing on VC, again because of the long reset times. So if you leave it here, you go down do the lowering the water and the first level checks, and then instead of saving and quitting, you can just warp right back here, do the second level, etc. Much more commonly, you're coming in here just to beat the temple, and you're not looking for any items. You just want to find the boss key and get out of here as quickly as possible. If that's the case, the best thing that you can do with FW is before you do any checks, come into this room right before the boss fight and drop FW in here. That way, as soon as you find the boss key, you can warp back here regardless of what the water level is, so you don't need to worry about getting it back up to the top. You're good to go. The third situation, similarly, you're looking for the boss key, but you haven't found it, and you don't have Song of Time. So you get all the way out to the Dark Link fight, you beat Dark Link, you don't get your boss key, and there's one check left and it's locked behind Song of Time. Bad luck. At that point, I would dispel the warp point and leave it in the room, the vanilla longshot room, right after the Dark Link fight, to save you from going all the way across this room, the rising and falling dragon puzzle, and through the Dark Link room again. So 3 quick things that you can do with FW there. For Shadow, I want to start with a pretty uncommon strategy. It's actually something pretty new. I saw Cubs Rule bring this up a couple of weeks ago. I think it was his original idea. It was an idea for using FW to more quickly go mode Jabu. If you know it's foolish, or if you're already in go mode and you're just trying to get through the dungeon as fast as possible. I've tried it a few times. It hasn't worked out for me yet, but I'm sure it will eventually. The idea is that you want to skip these 2 checks behind this invisible wall here, the dead hand fight and the vanilla, I think that's the vanilla map chest, where you fight the one Gibdo and the 2 keys. You're banking on neither of those having a key. If neither of those has a key, then you can just skip them entirely and beat the dungeon, save a couple of minutes. So this only works if you have FW. You carry on deeper into the dungeon. If at any point you get key locked, you drop FW as close to the door that you can't get through as possible, and then save and quit, come back, find your missing key, and then immediately warp back and continue through the dungeon. So you have the potential of saving 2 or 3 minutes, but if it doesn't work out, then you're going to lose however much time it takes you to save, quit, reset, and then walk from the entrance to those checks. So, like I said, I've tried it a few times. Someday it's going to save me time. There are 2 much more conventional and common uses of FW in Shadow, so I'll show you both of those. Alright, so this room right here, normally you collect 5 silver rupees and you kill the 2 redeads, and it opens up this door. In there is a pot that you need to explode with a freestanding item and 4 keys that you need to kill. If you have FW, it is so much faster to just leave it in this room, blow up the pot, get the item, and not worry about having to kill the keys. I've already blown up the pot, unfortunately. Oh, does it come back? Wow, I didn't know that came back. Alright, well, I'll show you the fast strat then. So if you pull a bomb chew immediately upon entering, and then drop it on the 4th flash, that'll blow it up for you, and then you can see the item before it even hits the ground. So if you're quick, you can warp out of the room before that item even hits the ground, if you don't need it. So the invisible maze at the back of Shadow is the other place where FW is able to save you a little bit of time, probably about 10 seconds. On the boat, when I do my last equip for Shadow, I always equip Din's Fire, FW, and the bow for fighting Bongo. So we can leave FW there, come over here, do that Din's Fire room, come over here and fight the Floor Master, and then rather than walking back through this invisible maze, as soon as we're done with this little fight and we've opened the chest, we can just pop right back, and we're ready to fight Bongo. So like everything else about Spirit Temple, FW and Spirit Temple can be complicated. There's a lot of factors that go into how you use it, including how much magic you have, how much magic you need to use, what equipment you have, whether you're full clearing or not. Magic management can be a bit of an issue in Spirit Temple, depending on how much you've already done as child. So a good thing to know, there is a guaranteed magic drop in that pot at the beginning of the temple. If you only have single magic rather than double magic, it's good to rely on fire arrows as much as possible if you have them instead of Din's Fire. They consume a lot less magic to get the same stuff done. If you do have to do all of the fire lock checks as adult, though, it can be a little bit tight to do them all and be dropping FW as well, so it's a good thing to keep your eye on FW. Again, especially if you don't have double magic. If you are here without a hookshot, this right here is a great place to leave FW. Otherwise, after you do the lobby checks and the child side checks, you would need to save and quit, walk back into the entrance, climb up through that mirror room again. But as it is now, we can do this. We could climb up there and do the ZL checks. We can come over here and do these, all without a hookshot. And then when we're done, we can just warp right back. Another popular spot to leave FW here is in the room with the 3 Anubises and Demos, which I believe are already gone. Yes. So, if I, after killing them all and I have enough magic, leave it here, it saves probably 15 to 20 seconds versus walking back. So I can come over here. I can climb up to the top Iron Knuckle fight, and I can even, as an alternative to pushing the block in the push block room, use my long shot to get across, get the check on child side, and then warp back and continue through the dungeon. That is still a time save, even if you're only checking the adult side Iron Knuckle fight. This is also a good place to drop FW. If you're in Spirit Temple without the Mirror Shield, you're not really able to do much past here. There's just the vanilla boss key chest that's available to you. Most people don't bother climbing up to check that, so this is a good place to leave FW in that situation. So if you're full clearing GTG, the fastest way to do it is to go left and do the full loop all the way around, and then do the maze. And that is a situation where FW doesn't really enter into the picture. However, there are some situations when it makes some sense to go right first. This is especially true if you don't have a bow, if you only have 1 strength, or if you're 1 item from go mode and you're just trying to get as many checks as quickly as possible. The right side is more check dense, especially at first. And all of the bow lock checks are either here in the lobby or on the left side. All of the strength lock checks are on the left side. So if the bow or the strength is over there, then you're able to do those checks when you do the right side without backtracking. If that's your situation, then leaving FW in the lobby is definitely faster than save warping back. So in this case, you would come through, you would do this room with the Demos and the Lizalfos, which in this case is already done. If you have Song of Time, you do the maze. You can go across and do that room with the torch slugs and the keys, and then hopefully you found your bow or your go mode item or your strength. If you're continuing in GTG, you warp back here. Since you already have it equipped, leave it again. Then we can go over to the left side, fight the Stalfos, do the Silver Ruby room, climb up to the Wolfos room, do all that strength log stuff over there. Once we have all our keys, we can warp back again, and then do the maze. Again, I don't think that's faster than just doing the loop normally from left to right, but contextually it may seem like a better play, so just wanted to put it out there as an option. Okay, so you're on your way to beat Ganondorf, and you don't have the light arrows yet. If you have Farore's Wind, of course you're going to leave it here in the hallway, and then you'll save, and then you'll get your hint, and then you'll reset. But if you have Farore's Wind left somewhere else, for instance if it's in Deep Fire, or if it's in GTG, or if it's in a half-finished ice cavern, somewhere far away, somewhere not easily accessible, you might want to keep your Farore's Wind there. There is a way to both keep your Farore's Wind set elsewhere and have it set here, and that's save-scumming your Farore's Wind. So the first thing that you're going to want to do here is to save. Save with your Farore's Wind set, say, in Deep Fire. And then, after we've saved, I'll dispel the warp point and reset it here in this room. So if I reset without saving again, my Faror's Wind is still in fire. If I save and reset, my Faror's Wind will be here. So now I can climb up and talk to Ganon. He'll tell me where the light arrows are. If he tells me that they're in Fire Temple, I will reset immediately without saving, and then I'll preserve my Faror's Wind in Fire Temple. I'll be able to go in there and find my light arrows. If he tells me anywhere but the Fire Temple, then I have to sit through this cutscene. It's not terribly long. Oh man, they were in my pocket the whole time. Who knew? After the cutscene's over, I can save and reset, go find my light arrows in my pocket where I forgot they were, and then be able to warp back to the hallway once I've dug them out. This is something that's not going to come up in every seed, but it definitely comes up often enough that it's good to be aware of it. There are a lot of situations in which you might want to save scum your Faror's Wind, but most of them are going to be in the end game, when you're missing 1 or 2 items, when you're just looking for light arrows, or maybe one thing and light arrows. So one that came up for me in a race a little while ago, I was 2 items away from go mode. I was missing a bow and something else. And I found a bow in the first check in Ice Cavern. And so I was 1 item from go mode, and I knew GTG was Way of the Hero. I had already been there, I'd found a Way of the Hero item there, but I hadn't been able to do any of the bow checks, and I thought, it's possible my go mode item is bow locked in GTG. I had Faror's Wind in GTG, but I was in Ice Cavern, and I thought, well, should I finish Ice Cavern while I'm here? Should I go back to GTG? So I did both. I save-scummed my Faror's Wind. I saved an Ice Cavern, warped back to GTG, quickly did the bow checks there, didn't find anything, reset, and I was in Ice Cavern still. So this takes a lot of on-the-fly thinking, but occasionally save-scumming your Faror's Wind can be a very powerful tool. It does require some on-the-fly thinking for sure, though. So I hope that you found this to be useful. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know.